After the pain, we sit and we talk a while.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone, good evening. Whether you're on now, whether you're watching the replay, good evening and welcome to After the Pain. I am Tiffany, otherwise known as Uniquely Tiffany. But you can just call me Tiffany because it may not always be uniquely Tiffany. It may be something else.
Well, do
But
what you
my
do.
but my name is Tiffany, and this is my husband.
Alpheus.
And we are here this evening to talk about After the Pain. If you were here for our last session on marriage, we talked about in sickness, and we had an awesome conversation. And I just want to put it out there that these conversations that we're having, we are not experts by any means. We are not. I think Kevin, Melissa said we're marriage champions. So that's what we are. We are marriage champions, and we want to help people to get information and knowledge that we did not have access to,
Mhm.
um, that we feel like would have helped us to be better in our marriage, better
Right.
to each other, better in our life. And so these conversations are to show you maybe some mistakes that we made, what we learned from our mistakes, what we can do to be better. You know what we've gained in going through the process. Because I want to say this as well is that in marriage there are two people who are coming together,
Mhm.
and whether you're healed, whether you're whole, whether you're broken, whether you got some boo-boos, it is not going to be a easy transition into two people becoming one, because even if you've done your own process in healing, and you've healed from your own trauma, if you've done your own homework on yourself and you've done your own self inventory, there are still some things that you're going to have to navigate in marriage, because you have your way of doing things. You may like to wash clothes, hang them up, put them away the same day, and your spouse may be like, I'm not here for that. Um, so it's going to be some things, maybe the way you cook, maybe the way you wash dishes, maybe you're a neat freak and they just like, oh, I clean up once a week. So there's always going to be something in the transitional part that is may cause some rough patches. And something that I learned, is that even in your best, even in what you do, even in doing what you believe is right, you can hurt someone unintentionally. So I don't really subscribe to the notion that because we come together, that things are going to always be perfect, that things are always going to be good, that things are always going to, we're just going to come together and it's just going to be peaches and cream. I don't I don't believe in that. I think that you can have your own fairy tale, and that you don't have to have the fairy tale that Hollywood tries to push on us, or um even some people who you may know in your life will try to push on you, well, it should be this way or it should be that. Because at the end of the day, there's things that I would tolerate that you wouldn't, and there's things that you would tolerate that I would have no parts of. So more of this is just listening to us and um seeing where we messed up, taking what you can from that, and going forward.
I say, to your credit, two people coming together. And I think a lot of times we forget that even though two people are coming together, you're still coming together yourself. And that if you don't allow yourself the room to mature, the
Hmm.
same way you're looking for your partner to mature and grow, then you're really doing yourself a disservice. And so you really need to begin to evaluate not only yourself but also your own um I don't want to say motives, but your own, motivations. You know, marriage is work,
Yes,
and
Lord.
it's a constant work. It's
Yes.
not just with you two, but even with yourself. It's with the things of life that comes. Um, marriage comes with things that, unless you really have done your research before even getting in the dating scene, you're gonna seem it's gonna seem like you're getting blindsided on so many different things. And what you really need to do is kind of take marriage and as a word, and then begin to research it on your own, and begin to ask yourself those questions like, what is it that I really want?
Right.
What do I want, not only out of that person, but what am I looking at out of myself?
Right.
you know because you're gonna find that you're gonna be in a relationship with someone, and the things that were wonderful in the beginning, now it'll start aggravating you. It may not even aggravate the other person. They may love it,
Right.
and all of a sudden now you don't like it.
Right.
So you really have to just sit down and really begin to take some inventory, and understand who you are and where you are, and be honest with yourself. And then also look at your partner and go, your spouse, and go, you're not my enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We're in a partnership. And so, instead of me always, coming at you on where you're lacking, maybe that may be a strong area in my life. That's the reason why it keeps catching my attention, and address those things. you know Everyone has their strong suits and their weaknesses, and so it really is a coming together. It's a joining that can be painful, but as much pain as you go through, it can also be just as beautiful, if you're really willing to put in the work.
Right. And so the topic for tonight is after the pain, and I'm glad you said about looking at your partner as someone who is your partner. And the topic for tonight is after the pain, and it's hard. Speaking from experience, it is hard to look at your partner as we're on the same team if your partner has broken your heart, or if your partner has caused a fracture in your unit. And so that is a hard thing to look at someone and say, well, we're on the same team. But what do you do when the teammate has injured you?
You gotta do like you do in basketball. You gotta keep your eye focused on the contract. Don't mess up the money. No, I'm kidding. You really do have to look at it and go, okay, they hurt. Like, you gotta look at the degree and the level of the hurt.
Right.
Is this like a hurt?
Like, what was the pain?
Right. Like, is this really more of a hurt of ego and pride, or is this really like, this really hurt me? You know what I mean?
Right. And it does depend. So it can, and I think that we need to be clear that pain can be it can be from emotional affair, from a physical affair, it can be from hiding finances. It could be in the way that you show up when I need you.
Mm-hmm.
It could be in the way that you talk to me. It could be in the way that you honor or dishonor our union. So pain doesn't have
Oh,
to
I got
be.
one.
Go ahead.
A pain can be, and that is the replacement of your spouse.
Yes.
The replacement. They're still there physically,
Right.
but you've switched them out, maybe with your children, maybe with your friends, maybe with a
Right.
co-worker.
Well, the coworkers, that would be considered an emotional affair.
Or hey, even your addiction. You can switch them out. Like, look, she ain't cutting it for me. He ain't cutting it for me. Rick James said it best. I'm in love with Mary Jane. She makes my heart sing. Come on. He was like, yo, she ain't doing it for me. Mary Jane is it. And people who are addicted to various things and is in those positions, it does cause pain, but it also lets you know, like, they really have a situation. So we just
Even if it's not addiction, they have, if your partner does something to you to the point of making you consider ending your union,
ending your union, ending your life.
any of those things, um those are painful things. and it's not an easy and a thing to get over. And I don't want you to think that we're talking from a place of not knowing, because we do know. um we had
Indeed.
our own situation. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago, um where I was considering putting hands and feet on him.
And it wasn't the cast iron no demons either. Yeah, it was.
Hands, feet, cast iron skillet, uh
Mystical said it best. Danger.
whatever I could get my hands on. And I never would have imagined that going into our union that he would have taken me to that place. Um
Yeah, that wasn't on the itinerary. That was not a destination that we was like, you know what, we're gonna go here.
right.
Let's go in this direction over here.
But in that, I think the thing that was most important was allowing myself to feel what I felt. Because what I have learned in life concerning me, and it may be different for you, but concerning me is that when somebody does something to me, when they hurt me, I have to vocalize it. I have to have a conversation. I have to say something, because if I internalize it, it literally feels like a rock on my chest, and it just is like sitting there and I cannot function. And so I had to have some uncomfortable conversations with him. I had to have some uncomfortable conversations with myself, uncomfortable conversations with God. Um, even in the initial conversation with him, he was all defense, all defense, all defense. It was my fault. I caused it.
The typical,
The typical reaction.
typical reaction.
Typical
I was trying to
reaction.
find the word, so I'm like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
The typical reaction, especially I think when you're unsure of why you're doing what you're doing.
Right.
Because in our conversation that we had about what took place,
Mhm.
one of my questions to him is if this is what you say that you wanted to be married to me, and that you wanted to have these kids, and you wanted a family, why are you self-sabotaging? Why are you doing things?
Right.
um, why are you doing things that would cause the very thing that you've prayed for, the very thing that you have put on your list, like this would be everything to me? Why would you do the very thing to cause you to lose it? And he didn't really have a response.
Because that's
He didn't have a response.
a
for
question
me.
that you really just be like, I don't know. Let me get back with you.
Right. And what I also had to learn is that it wasn't about me. Um it had nothing to do with what I was doing, what I wasn't doing, how I looked. It was about a void that he needed filled, that I could not fill, that he thought I could fill. Not only did he think that I could fill it, I thought that I could fill it. And God had to tell me, your love will never be enough for him. Because what is missing, you cannot replace. And when God told me that, I just was like, I've been supportive. I've been there.
Your well ain't deep enough. You ain't got the juice, baby. You ain't got the juice for this.
I've been when he had his surgery. I didn't leave his side. I'm listening, and God just was like, it will never be enough. And I remember hearing a lady say that we try to fill God-sized voids with people, and they cannot fill them.
Mhm.
And so that's what it made me think of, is that my love, no matter how much I pour it, no matter how much I show it, no matter how much I'm there, how much I celebrate him, it would never be enough, because the void that he has, I cannot fill. No one can fill. And so that was a hard pill to swallow for me. Um,
Mhm.
because I just was that really took me back when God told me that. Because we think that our love for a person will just work miracles.
Right.
And our love is love. God wants you to love people. I'm not telling you that, but there's some things that need to be done that your love cannot fix.
But the thing is that there's some things that is love, and then
Mm,
there's a part of it that is pure selfish.
mm,
And the way God dealt with me about it was um the movie Venom.
okay, so you were the thing eating people.
It's it's the thing that you can't out there are things in your life you can't outrun.
Right,
You can't outwork it, because a lot of times there are things in us that we try to work our way through it, and as in keeping ourselves busy. And you
right,
surround yourself with a whole bunch of people and you declare them your friend, and they're not your friend, but you have them there to occupy a space so that you don't have to deal with this monstrous thing that is within you, whether it's greed, whether it's selfish, whether it's envy,
right,
jealousy, whatever. And so you try to do all of those things. And sometimes, even in our giving of things to people, we're doing it selfishly,
right,
because outwardly it looks good, but inwardly you're like, I want all the praise, even no matter how small it is. And for me, it was really, as private as I am, there was a great area in me that was just selfish. And so
mhm.
because when I wanted attention, I needed all. Like, give me all of it, and then when I've had my fill, okay, y'all go
Goodbye.
away,
See
and
you
I don't
later.
want to talk to you no more. And so, as in God was just sharing with her, like, your love isn't going to do it, because this is something that He and I have to work out.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
so, and when you're in those kind of situations, you really have to be honest with yourself, and then stop trying to replace the voice of God with your own voice,
Mm,
because sometimes we try to talk for God. We know you're a minister, and you speak for God for the people, but when there comes a time when you got to stop trying to be the mouthpiece of God and be the ear and listen to God
hmm.
and what He is saying concerning you.
Right.
And so one of the ways that I was able to get through that, well, two things. One is that I had to increase my devotion to my faith, and that is not just reading the Word of God, but really immersing myself in a higher level than what I was. And then two, I surrounded myself with men that held me accountable,
Hmm.
and those men, they were like, we praying for you, but now it's not like, oh, now because you've um mismanaged the trust of your wife, now you just got to take all of this, whatever. They were like, no, at this moment now, God is taking you back to the place of being a servant. Even though you're a son, you got to go back to serving, and really gain the understanding and the knowledge of that at a different level, in a different place. And so, with those two things combined, and then going to therapy, really gave me a really good foundation. But I still had to have a conversation, and several conversations with Tiffany,
Yes.
that sometimes I didn't want to have. And sometimes you're in a hot seat and you want to, and I wasn't even like, I'm constantly trying to defend myself,
Yes, you were.
but no, I'm saying consciously, but you're sitting there, and if you've ever been in court and they're reading what you've done, you're like,
I ain't do all that. Why you lying on me?
if I did all of that, like, I should be in a different place than this right now. Like, it's almost like robbing the bank and still being poor. It's like, wait, I did all of that and I still didn't even.
I ain't getting nothing.
I didn't get
for it.
nothing out of it. So it's one of those things where okay, you listening to her, and it's not and I had to get out of the place of, this is an attack on me, but this is the damage. This is the collateral damage of decisions made.
Right.
And so who's got to clean it up? Not God, but you.
Because
Because you're the one who messed up.
Right.
And so it was in those moments where This is one of the twins came in. So it's one of those things where you really have to take what is being said and go, I got to eat the whole scroll, the bitter and the sweet.
Right.
So this wasn't an attack as in, oh, you're not a good father or you weren't a friend or whatever the case may be. This is what you did affected this area. And thank God it didn't go into other areas and spread into other things. But because we are a part of a threefold cord, we're not easily broken. And so we both got, really into a place of prayer, a place of, okay, you need to be held accountable to this. And you got to take responsibility for that. And so I think that's when the healing started to take place. And even now, there's still things where I'm like, okay, I don't want to do anything that even remotely reminds her of any of those things. So as much as I want to stay as secretive and privately as possible, or do things that I normally would have done, I want to make sure that I'm continuously striving to restore trust and love and appreciation, going forward, so that it's not just, okay, this was a temporary moment and then we're going to relapse and go back to this again.
Right. Because you can get in a cycle if you don't deal with the root of it. You're going to be in a cycle of every 2 years, every year, every 3 years. And a cycle or a pattern doesn't necessarily mean the same amount of time. It just means that it keeps happening. So it could be 3 years and it can happen again, but you have to deal with it in a way so that it doesn't continue to repeat itself. Because until you deal with it, it will forever be on repeat.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the time, it will come back up and it will forever show itself until you deal with it. Now, I know for me, he's talking about how he had these people who were there for him, who encouraged him and all these things. I felt alone for probably like the first year. I feel like I didn't have anybody to talk to, or the people who I did talk to, who I felt like loved me and would pray with me and be there for me. I feel like they dropped the ball. And so in also dealing with the pain, it's important to have a support system. And if you are someone's support system who is healing from something, whether it's in their relationship, whether they almost died having babies, whether their spouse is going through a horrific surgery, or it could be something they lost a child or they lost a loved one, it's important as a support system to be there, to be present, to make yourself available, not just an ear to hear what happened, but to be a shoulder in the process of the healing. Because a lot of people are open to hearing what took place and are quick to say, well, I'm praying for you. Well, sometimes I need more than your prayer. Well, I need your presence. Maybe I need to go out to lunch with you. Maybe I need a break. Maybe I need just to scream and cry on your shoulder. And I feel like sometimes we are quick as Christians to say, I'm praying, but what are we doing physically to help them? Because we have hands, we have feet, we're able to physically do things. We can pray, absolutely pray, but also show up. Cook dinner one night so they don't have to cook. Call them out to get out the house or something. I don't know.
I think a lot of times people are good at the intake because they hear you and they hear what goes on. But they can't be there for you if they're possibly in the same situation and they're bleeding themselves.
True.
And so we have a lot of people who are bleeding and they're there to hear the beginning, but they tune you out because they're hearing their own pain as they're listening to you.
So they can't.
So when you're trying to talk, then it seems like it's a competition because you go,
Right.
I got cut on my leg, girl. I got cut on my thigh. I'm been bleeding for 4 days. You like, but wait, I called you to tell you
Right.
about
I called you to be an ear,
Right.
but you're being a mouth.
because they themselves are going through it,
Right. Right.
and they are too afraid to say this is what's going on truly in my life.
Right.
Because sometimes I've noticed this with Christians and just people in general, because we're creatures of habit, is that we'll reveal areas of pain in our life that is equal or lower to the people who we're talking to. The real pain and the real agony that they're going through, they keep hidden.
Right.
Because for them, they can't fathom someone else helping them to heal.
Yeah.
But they can't even fathom their lives being without pain.
Because they're so used to the pain.
Because they've gotten so accustomed to it.
Right. Right.
That's why I love the song. The song says, is this pain or pleasure? For all we do is fight. We've been fighting for so long that it's feeling right.
What song is that?
It's an R&B song. It's a church song. It's R&B.
But what song is it?
I have to look it up.
Okay.
But in the lyrics, he said you've been going through it for so long. You've been in this pain for so long.
Right.
That now you found pleasure in it, and you can't even imagine your life outside of that pain.
Right. Right.
So you and I don't want to say you desensitized, because that's not the case. Because if anybody touches it in the message or whatever, you scream and it's a trigger. But a lot of times, instead of just saying this is where I'm really hurting,
right?
It is not even just being a healing, but it's actually being made whole,
right?
And I think that even with us, everything just came back full circle. At times I would be like, God, we always going through something, or something is like always happening, whatever. And you like,
some of it is by our own accord.
True. But then also some of it is by association. You
gotta be careful who you're around.
Quit fooling with y'all. No, I'm kidding. But again, our pain, after the pain. So now, after this has happened, what are our steps? What do we need to do?
I feel like you need to, like I was saying, have a safe, whether it's one person or two that you can talk to. And if you're going through something and you feel like I felt like you don't have anyone within your circle that you can talk to, I would definitely recommend a therapist.
Oh, therapy all the way.
Because they can help you to navigate those emotions and uncover them, to realize, what do you want to do? Sometimes we're so quick to, when things happen, whether it's there are some things that are unforgivable. I mean, in the sense of not wanting to be with that person.
Okay, yeah, I dig that.
And I'm not saying unforgivable, like I'm saying in your marriage, you just like, this is
a deal breaker.
Is a line, deal breaker. This is a line, you crossed it and you cannot come back from it. I forgive you, but go in peace your way, and I'm gonna go in peace my way. But there are some things that are not.
Ooh,
and you need someone to help you to figure out. Some people are quick to tell you, well, you need to leave, you need to do this, you need to do that. And sometimes it's not that you need to leave, it's that you got to rebuild from the ground up. And that takes a lot of work, because oftentimes we just want to go back in the house, but the house jacked up, so you can't go back in the house. You got to put in work, because your foundation was jacked up, the reason why the whole thing even happened. So I think that whether you have a close friend, a mentor, someone that you can confide into and gain wisdom and help you to navigate, I suggest a therapist. Not saying that pastors don't counsel or anything, but there's a different way of navigating through emotions and getting them to the place, getting you to see where they come from. And how a lot of things, and I know people don't like it, but a lot of things have they have a root, and they started somewhere that wasn't in this relationship,
right,
or in this circumstance. And so you got to get to the root so that you can deal with it. So I would suggest First being honest with yourself about how you're feeling, allowing yourself to feel the emotions, because if you push them down, they're going to erupt in a time that is not what's optimal
Yeah,
timing.
yeah.
Because what's going to happen is if you walk around and you say, well, I'm okay, and the right person is going to ask you and you're just going to vomit, like verbally vomit on them everything, because you have not had a place to release it. So I would suggest a therapist. I
And
would
they're unbiased, so and they don't know you.
Yes, they're unbiased. They don't know you and they don't really have a motive. Sometimes people in our lives have motives. Maybe they don't never wanted you to be with the person. Maybe
On the inside, they like, yes.
maybe they wanted you to go to maybe they had somebody in mind who they felt like you would be better to be with. I'm not sure. But I also would also don't rush the process,
Oh, please.
because oftentimes, and we went through this, and this is why I can say that he would be like, but didn't we just deal with that? Or didn't
Oh,
we?
mid condition.
Okay. He would be like, well, didn't we just talk about this? Well, we're going to talk about it until.
Because I'm like, listen, we already talked about this 3 times now. You should let it go. I'm done. I don't want to talk about it no more.
But it's, you know what it was? It's the answering. Because in us talking about, there were some things that you just was like, that's not an answer. That's not an answer. So, I think talking about it, getting a feeling that it has been resolved. Because unfortunately, the way that our bodies work or the way that our memories work is that oftentimes, even when we try to move on from a situation,
Mm-hmm.
we could be randomly driving, listening to music, and that memory will pop before your eyes. And it's just like, I didn't want to remember that. And so, if you are resolved about the conversation, resolved about your decision to move forward, then you can, when that comes before you, yeah, it's going to have an effect on you, but it won't take you back to the place of when the fracture happened. And I think that's the importance of having the uncomfortable conversations,
Mm-hmm.
Of seeking counseling, whether you do it together or apart. I think that sometimes you need both, because oftentimes each person has something individually that they need to work on. And if
Mm-hmm.
you go to couples counseling and neither one of you have done individual, you'll spend your whole time where one person is, they're trying to help the one person deal with their issue. And so you're not able to work on it, the unit, because you're focused on the one person.
I think when you do the individual, you're able to get to some other things that's happening in your
Right.
life and has
Right.
happened in your life. And so when you get to couples, you're able to come at it at a healthier stance, because now I've been working on me.
Right.
So when we come together now, I have a better understanding when my spouse says, this bothered them, or
Right.
this is something that they feel like is lacking in a relationship. You won't take it as a personal attack, because you've been working on yourself and you see why you feel the way that you feel. Because if you feel that way with your spouse, chances are you feel that way in other areas of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like I said that even with me when it came to like, rushing through things, because I was gonna say, nah, I really rushing through, but for me, it'll be resolved with me, or I just be like, okay, I'm done. And then, my wife, she's like, but no, I still feel some kind of way. There's something that I'm still missing.
Yes.
And so, I know when you go find out what's missing, I'm done, I'm good, I'm going to sleep or doing whatever. But then when you start doing therapy and you start understanding that comes from being dismissive of my own feelings or
Right.
other things in my life, that has nothing to do with her, but they're interconnected because it's me.
Right.
The end result is I'm the key element in all of it. Is like, okay, so when you start working on you, then you'll begin to find out some other things about yourself, and that in itself takes your marriage to a greater level because you value your marriage enough to get your head space clean and get it clear, and you're so invested in your marriage that you would invest your time and resources to make sure that your heart is mended and so that your spirit can be able to flow and to move. And so I think a lot of times we undervalue when we see spouses undervalue the other spouse, it's because they actually undervalue themselves. Jesus tells us in the word, to love your neighbor as thyself. And we overlook that so often, because I can't love my neighbor because I really don't love me.
Right.
And you think I love, because you think I love me because I buy me clothes and I make sure I eat and so on and so forth. But you like your mental space and your spirit is like in the twilight zone.
Right.
And so I think a lot of times, we really don't understand or really don't pay attention to the pain that we even inflict on ourselves.
Right.
And so we'll take a misunderstanding from our spouse and make it be something that is not.
Right. Because sometimes somebody can tell us something they don't like about us, and then we'll take it as our total being versus just a part of our character or a part of our makeup that they don't like.
Right.
And that takes us to rebuilding trust. And it's a mutual thing. While the weight of it is burdened to the person who fractured the trust, it's still a mutual thing in the sense of, while the one person is working on rebuilding your trust, you have to be, the person who was injured or who was hurt has to be open,
right,
to the rebuilding of the trust.
Because we don't want to pay for them building permits. Because now you got to look at, I gotta think, man. Let's work on it. Come on, we ain't communicating. Let's talk.
Right.
And then you're like, what are we going to talk about? Well, I don't know. Well, you the one said you wanted to communicate. Well, you said in therapy, I wasn't talking. So I'm talking to you now, and now you ain't got nothing to say. So now don't tell the therapist next week that I was trying to communicate with you. You want to communicate with me. And then,
but I think it's effective communicating, because there's talking, right, there's communicating, and there's also effective listening. Sometimes we listen to be combative. We listen to reply. We listen so that we can build our case versus listening to actually understand where you're coming from. And so that's part of rebuilding trust, is listening so that I understand, if I'm the person who hurt you, understanding why it hurt you. Because I think sometimes we just think of hurt again as it being, oh, he cheated on me and he slept with 10 women. Sometimes an emotional affair, if you don't know what it is, it just means that you have given time that you are having conversations that you shouldn't have, essentially, right, with somebody else. You haven't been intimate. There's been nothing physical. But sometimes that can hurt worse because you feel like they gave a part of themselves to somebody else. Some people can deal with cheating, having bodies, versus giving a portion of yourself.
Oh, why that's okay right here.
Giving a portion of yourself, of your time to somebody else.
Right.
So there's a difference in that. What was I finna say? I lost my train of thought.
Body yada 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 yada.
Because you being silly.
I'm just saying.
But in rebuilding trust,
active listening.
So I'm being active in hearing, what did I do that caused you to be hurt? So, if I emasculated you, what did I say?
So
why did it
awesomeness?
Oh my God. So if I emasculated you, what did I say? Why did it make you feel emasculated? What did I can't stand you. What did I do that made you feel the way that you do, so that I can understand? Because if I love you, then I'm going to work on not repeating it. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to hit you.
I ain't do nothing.
Okay, I'm going to hit you.
I think, working in the call center, active listening
Yes.
is more than just being able to recall what the person is saying, but really taking notice of key words that is being said so that it takes you from being where you are
Right.
to putting yourself in their place and seeing it through their lens
Right.
so that then you can see the direction that the conversation is going,
Mm-hmm.
but also that you can begin to make repairs.
Right.
I'll say, like, for me, um I had to change like routines and stuff. Your habits and your daily routine in the morning tells you how you're going to run the rest of your day. The way you start your day is the way you're going to end it.
I start my day tired,
And so,
and I end my day tired.
because the way you start your day is the way you end it. So you got to begin to make necessary changes.
Mhm.
And sometimes it means cutting people off, whether you've known them for years or not. Maybe
Right.
sometimes it is, being in a different ministry than where you are. You may feel like you're being fed, but is your spouse being fed? Are they being ignored?
Right.
There has to be a balance. Even in church, there has to be a balance in the message.
Mhm.
Even though we're giving you life application, we got to give you Jesus.
Amen.
And so we gotta get that balance, and you start understanding, like, oh, okay, I'm growing and you not, so something must be wrong with you. No, actually, are you listening to the message without it feeding where you are, or tickling your ears, and really understanding, like, I'm not the only person that's being left out. And
Right.
so you gotta, we had those conversations, and it made me, after some time, because it's not like something I just got overnight.
No, he didn't. He
um
remedial.
I ain't no remedial. I just, for me, it takes 21 days to create a habit, right? But it takes 3 months to show consistency.
Mm.
So people can change, do whatever for 21 days, and you're like, oh, you formed a habit. But if that habit isn't continuously done, then there's going to be no consistency. And so then that it really didn't form a new habit.
Right.
It just did enough to do a patchwork to whatever, but you're liable to go back to that place again quicker than if you really did the work and begin to understand and unpack, what took place. Like,
Right.
really, that's why active listening is so important. Really understanding what happened,
Right.
not just this is how it made me feel.
Right.
You got to start now evaluating situations. When I was doing this helped lead to this, which led to this, which brought me to where we are. And even if it's something that just was a one-off or a one-night stand or whatever, there are still breakdowns even before it gets to that place,
Mm-hmm.
that you may not think it's, was a part of it, but it really is a part of that series. And so I think that a lot of times, we kind of just like, oh, I've heard this before, and we just brush it off.
Yeah.
And then you wonder, why you're dealing with a lot of the things that you're dealing with. And so for me, I can talk about me. I'm like, when you don't tend to your garden, when you're not doing the things that you need to do,
Right.
you leave yourself open for not even the attack of the enemy, because you leave yourself to attack yourself.
Mm.
Everything isn't the devil. We make choices all the time without the devil even saying anything.
Exactly.
So we gotta quit giving the devil so much credit and all of that, and just really be like, I made this stupid choice or whatever.
But also a part of rebuilding trust is, so when he said he was secretive, like he thought he was in the CIA, y'all, and like he was on,
I don't trust them.
like he was on missions, and he was undercover agent, and nobody could know anything. And so part of the way that he started working on rebuilding trust with me is, like, he didn't have things that, like, I could put my finger on his phone, or and that wasn't just for me to feel comfortable, but also in a way holding him accountable to what's going on. And like he said, with the friendship, sometimes you have to let go of relationships, because in what y'all think is normal may be something that somebody else would look at and be like, this ain't how this supposed to be. Now, it might have been okay while you were single,
Single ready to mingle.
but it's different when you're in a relationship.
My boo don't appreciate it.
And it's important that you work on healing together.
Mm-hmm.
So that involves open communication, that may involve going to counseling, that may involve implementing some date nights so that you can get back to not to the relationship that you had. And I think that's very important is that people, a lot of times when something happens, they be like, well, I want the old relationship back. Well, the old relationship was jacked up. So,
Baby, that ship sunk.
so it's about getting back to the person who you fell in love with. And oftentimes when we're going through things, the person who we fell in love with seems to be hard to find.
Hey, right there, baby. He's just sleeping.
Boy.
Cat nap.
So it takes a lot of work. It takes a
Mm.
lot of effort. It takes talking. It takes continually to have those uneasy
Uncomfortable.
uncomfortable conversations. It takes surrounding yourself with people who are going to challenge you both to be the best that you can be. It involves serving each other in a different capacity. It involves loving each other in a different capacity, loving them, understanding that they are flawed. Sometimes I think we go into relationships thinking and being like, oh, well, he's Mr. Perfect or she's Mrs. Perfect. But everybody got flaws. The only person who was on this earth who was flawless was Jesus.
Jesus.
So we all have flaws. We all have something that we are working on.
Mm-hmm.
But a marriage can recover if the two people want it to recover and are willing to work at it recovering. Most marriages, there are things that they can be that end in divorce. There are things that they can be worked on, but neither party wants to work, or one party wants to work and the other one doesn't. And no marriage can recover if only one person is willing to put in the work.
I would say to that, you got to know, you got to learn how to recover without resentment.
Yes.
Because a lot of times we recovering and I say recovering because you start now, you in your mind you're going, okay, so I know it wasn't me and what I was doing or whatever that caused them to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're starting to heal because now you're not blaming yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but now you start resenting everything else.
All right.
And you start hating the nice things that you did, and you start hating and disliking every movement that person makes. So even though you say verbally you forgive them and things are on the surface level better, a lot of times people are now moving in resentment, and then they're moving in bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to make sure that you're not doing those things, because resentment before long will cause you to start hating not only that person but everybody else. You start lumping everybody together, people who don't even look like them, situations that have nothing to do with them. You be pumping gas and you be like, you know what, y'all ran out of gas just like my ex-husband. You like, wait, what did he got to do with
what's going on
Chevron running out of gas or Sunoco
Right.
running out of gas? Like, how do
they correlate?
you start getting angry, and it just started bubbling up because you didn't heal properly.
Right.
You still was trying to act and function like everything is good and normal or whatever, when in actuality you really just replace one pain for another.
Right.
So I mean, it is what it is. People gotta
I chose
get her done.
I chose Betty Wright's song. If you don't know the song that's playing, it's called After the Pain. And she's just talking about how
I see.
they how they sit and talk, and how she's glad to see him. So I think that you really just have to figure out if you want to proceed after the pain. And sometimes that means taking a break, and figuring out what you want to do. But you're capable of recovering. I was scrolling through Instagram, And Mike Todd was talking on something, and he said, we serve a God who can bring back together a couple that has been divorced for 6 years.
Mm.
And so
Ooh-wee.
so I think that is to encourage you that there are some things I understand that would make you not want to be with the person. And I can't tell you if it's right or wrong because I don't have to live with them. Um, but
Obviously.
but I think that there are a lot of times when we're so willing to let go of someone. And in reality, we think that we're dealing with an adult and we're dealing with a broken child. And we knew that we were dealing with a broken child before. It's just that we were willing to deal with the temper tantrums and we were willing to deal with the annoyance. But now they have done something that has caused pain and we're quick to leave people. So I would suggest I'm an advocate for doing your own soul searching, figure out what works for you. And if it's time for something to end, there will be a peace about it. When I finally did get people around me who were encouraging me, they never told me to walk away. They didn't tell me to stay. They didn't tell me to do anything. They prayed with me. My one friend, she would be like, well, it seems like you got some more teaching to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, seems like you got more work to do. And she had herself been through a divorce, and she let me know, you'll know when it's time to let it go because you'll have a peace about it. So we just wanted to come on. We wanted to encourage you and let you know that you can recover, that there can be life after the pain, no matter what the circumstances of your relationship, what you have gone through. But it takes a lot of work, and sometimes after the pain, people don't want to put in the work. But if you value that relationship, if you value that person, it's going to take work and it's going to be a daily thing. And sometimes it's going to seem like it's never ending. But if you put in the work, then your foundation will be secure and the house that you build this time will stand. Not saying that nothing else will happen, um, but when the blow comes, it won't be as devastating. It won't be something that is life altering or life shattering. It's something that you will be able to stand together with because you have expressed yourself, you have healed, you have done all the work that you needed to do so that you can move forward. You have anything else you want to say?
Just whatever you do it on purpose because everything else has been passive. And so when you begin to heal on purpose.
Yeah.
When you have the conversation on purpose.
Right.
When you say what you feel, say it on purpose. Make sure that
And don't
you're
be
resolute.
afraid.
Right. Don't be afraid and be resolute about it. Be solid in what you stand. My wife is
Stand your ground.
she's great at this one thing that I admire, and that is she'll go, I want to wait to have this conversation so that I choose my words carefully.
Yes.
And so then when she say it, she's saying it on purpose, and she's thought about it and has played out all the scenarios like Doctor Strange. She's looked at every avenue
Yes.
of words so that when she say them, it's
Yes.
her thoughts are crystal clear
Right.
as she stands and believes in what she says. But also it gives the opportunity for me or whoever she's talking to hear what she has to say and then go, okay, this person, is not like any other people that I deal with. And so the information that comes from her is from a different place, and from a healthy place. And so that's what you want to do. You want to make sure that everything that you do is purposeful, that it has meaning, that you're not mixing and mingling any words or any of those things, but you are sharing your honest to God feelings and how you truly want to move forward. Just be clear about it from the beginning so that everything else from that moment forward can either bring y'all closer together or help you make the decision to move on. Because at the end of the day, those are the decisions that you got to make. I thank God that we have made decisions in our life and our marriage wherein it's to bring us closer together.
Right.
Even when it hurts, it still brings us closer together. And even when it's uncomfortable, or we may not even fully agree with it, with because of the direction God wants us to go, we still are like, okay, God, we're submitted to this thing all the way into death. So, that's what I would say.
Well, that's it. Thank you
Rag
guys so
cheese.
much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
Hit that bell to be notified. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Hit that bell to be notified. And we will see you all in our next video. Deuces.